We'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
Except mostly sunny, dry, and warm weather out there through your afternoon. Highs 84 to 87 tonight. A few passing clouds, milder lows into the lower 60s. Continue dry for the weekend, but very breezy. Highs tomorrow closer to 80, into the upper 70s on Sunday. Brought to you by JCPenney. At JCPenney, get $10 off now through this weekend when you spend $25 or more with coupon. That's getting your pennies worth at JCPenney. And I 14 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ford. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Martin Truex Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott Powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocks him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
The voice of NASCAR. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's David Tulis.
We do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, where we really appreciate the operation of the market, where the party that needs something the most has the greatest merit, and his need allows him to spend more on a limited thing and to obtain it. And we say that because as the Hurricane Matthew and his 120-mile-an-hour winds lash Florida's East Coast, as we're being told here on television, and coming next to South Carolina, we have an interference with the market at the very moment when a jarring event comes into the marketplace. We have the interruption by the nanny state, the state that infantilizes the businessman, forbidding him to sell and buy at the market's calling, which is to say that the prices should naturally go up when there's scarcity and tumult, because that lets the price mechanism sort out who deserves to be able to buy and who can wait for later. And that's the marketplace, where at the lowest level, at the most proximate level of a transaction, the nearest point to any transaction, the decision of price is made by the two parties that want to buy, and not have prices set artificially low by statute. And we have in Tennessee a statute on at the moment when they need to be the most far thing from the mind of anybody. And also we have the same system in South Carolina and North Carolina and Florida, where right now the attention is on escaping the wrath of the storm. People who are facing shortages and outages because they can't buy what they need. They are willing to pay more if they can get it, but somebody who didn't need it quite as much as they was able to get it because the price was artificially suppressed. And so gasoline is out, batteries are out, generators, plywood, and all kinds of things are suddenly gone because people who didn't need them the most got them first. And the mechanism is broken by statute. So we have that situation going on here. And again, it's not relational. The state does not accept relationships. The state does not let the marketplace players decide who's going to have a transaction and who can wait. No, we're going to step in and declare what the rule is of that transaction. But relationships is where the market is. And relationships also run the world around you. And that is what local economy and the free market theme is about. This is David Tulis, and we are talking now with Philip Wold, who is a man who works in a local hospital in the day surgery department in X-ray technology. And he is, I'd say, an interesting character to meet because he has a real gift for this relationship concept that we are well mimicked by state governments, keeping their hands out of commercial relationships. Well, Philip, tell us a little bit about what you do. You work in the X-ray field. You're 59 years old.
Yes, sir.
And you are married. Your wife's name is Martha. You have one child who works, a young woman who works in a Starbucks restaurant. What is it you do in your calling? Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to hear a little bit more about your theory of relationships.
Thanks, Dave. As an X-ray technologist, I of course do images and achieve a level of information through X-ray that the doctors are able to use. They're able to diagnose and treat patients wholly, as opposed to on a limited basis, as years ago. Our field has really advanced quite a bit, which I'm proud to say. The digital age actually has given us quite a bit of benefit.
So X-rays they're made instantly to a digital format. They don't go to film anymore, do they? When did that technology go out?
I would say probably it's been in the works for about 15, possibly 20 years, but it has really come into its own now, I would say, within the past 10 years fully.
So that is to say, the shift from film to purely hard drive images.
Correct, yeah.
How big? Tell my listener how big an X-ray file is. How many megabytes?
Well, it depends. If it's a chest X-ray, for example, it's probably about the same amount of megabytes that you would take if you're going to take a selfie, or if you're going to take an image of, a family portrait or whatever. About the same amount. Now, CAT scans, MRIs, something that's a little more gigabyte intensive, can really eat up quite a few gigabytes.
On my phone, a Samsung Note, I can decide whether to have a 900 kilobyte image or a 4 megabyte image for very high quality.
Right.
So that's the range we're talking about in the X-ray field.
Yeah, correct.
Image sizes.
Our radiologists use a 4K monitor to bring the images up and to diagnose whatever ailments or whatever anomalies that they pick up on the images.
Well, how is it you got into this field, which is a kind of a technical field? It's a kind of a back room line of work, Philip Wold. Explain a little bit where you went to college and how you ended up in the X-ray sector.
Actually, my dad affectionately said to me, son, you're sliding down a grease pole to hell, so you better pick something to do. And I'd worked in the hospital field as an orderly years ago, and I really enjoyed the work. But I joined the Army in 1976, and Uncle Sam was good enough to train me for a career in X-ray technology. After I got out of the service, went to college, but I found that I really enjoyed patient care. I enjoyed dealing with the public, and I enjoyed being able to provide, just what I could give to people. I feel that I've got a certain amount of compassion that is dedicated for this type of field.
Well, when I met you, I was in a waiting room in a local hospital, and my wife was having surgery. She had an accident and was having surgery on her hand. And so I was in a waiting room, and there I met you. Now, you were not in that day surgery sector, or nearly on the front desk dealing with the public. How is it that on that day you were behind the desk and tending to the coffee machine and so on?
Occasionally, when I'm not doing X-rays, I'll help out at the front desk or pretty much wherever I'm needed. My employers recognize my people skills, and so they try to plug me into areas where I can be best utilized when I'm not doing my X-ray side of the business.
Well, I don't want you to speak about yourself in the sense of boasting, and I know you're kind of a modest person, Philip Wold, X-ray technician, and so you're probably don't want to talk about the kind of things you do, but I think it might be valuable for my listener who wants to get into his own business. He wants to have more relation with what we would call the public. What are the kinds of things that you've done just in the course of being your own person, Philip Wold, in this hospital? What kind of things do you see that not need to be done? What kind of benefits do you see could be applied from your soul, if you will, and your person to some woman in the hallway, let's say, or some woman just wandering into the hospital?
Well, I think that first of all, I think as a healthcare professional, if this is something that you choose to do, or if you're going to deal with people in general, I think you've got to have a certain amount of compassion, really, regardless of whatever field you're in, whatever line of work you want to venture to. You've really got to understand where your gifts are. You've got to identify what positive things that you can bring not only to the people around you, but to your workplace. I believe that people benefit from somebody with a compassionate attitude, whether you're in business, whether you're in the healthcare field, regardless. I think compassion, understanding, patience, which is a virtue and in limited supply most days, are all very essential in conducting good business.
Well, I appreciate that. Talk a little bit about patience. Can you try to remember maybe an example this week at the hospital where you were not doing tech work and x-rays, but you were on the front desk there where the people are? What would be an example of showing patience, and how did you deal with the moment of heat in which you're tempted to not be patient and to make a good point to that person?
Well, I can't think of an example. I was walking a patient out of our facility out to where their ride was picking them up. And usually what I'll do is I'll ask them a question. And it doesn't matter whether they give me a yes or no response, but based on that response, I'll know whether I can joke with them, whether I have to maintain a professional decorum. And it's identifying where the patient's at, and you've got a few seconds to do that. And if you can master that technique by just asking them a question, because they're going to give you a response, you'll be able to tell by their body language, by their vocal tone, by their attentiveness to you and your question. And I believe that this is something that it's practiced. It's a learned behavior, I believe. And it served me so well over the years. And I do this just, even in and out of work. It's a skill that as you approach people, you can identify exactly where they're at, exactly what their needs are. You've got a few seconds, but you just have to listen. You have to watch them and adjust your behavior, adjust your approach to them based on that response.
Well, what is the question, or what type of question is helpful?
Really any question. One of the ones that I use is, how are you feeling? Because they're coming out of recovery. They're slightly chemically inebriated still from the anesthesia. And, I'll ask them, sometimes they'll say, well, I'm a little dizzy. And I'll say, well, I heard from your nurse that everything went excellent and that you did a very good job. Well, how would you have heard from the nurse? Does she come over to tell you, or do you somehow find out from her? Do you dart to the back car doors? Yeah, actually, when I pick the patient up from recovery and walk them out, because occasionally I'll do that, the nurse who had that patient will tell me, this patient did great. Or maybe the patient's still a little nauseated, Phil, so just kind of be easy with them. And then I'll ask, I'll say, I may even compliment them on something they have, like nice shoes, or hey, I love that shirt. And I'm just watching for the response, and I'm listening for how they connect with me. And then based on that connection, I'll know how to approach them from that point forward.
My listener, Philip Wold, admits that he doesn't have a lot of compassion. It's not a virtue that he has. What would you say to him that would encourage him to have more of it? How can what line of thinking would help resource that lack?
I would, what I would do is when you talk to people, talk with a smile in your mind. And I know that's kind of an odd concept, but if you're smiling in your mind, and if you may even flash a little grin or whatever, that conveys warmth. There's been studies where if you touch a person and, like in a patting on the shoulder, or just touch them as you're talking to them, that conveys warmth. And when people have been asked on exit interviews from different studies, they said, oh yeah, that person smiled at me. That person was, they're very genuine. They were very compassionate. And yet in the study, the person never smiled. They just touched the person. So I believe a tactile response and a compassionate smile. You don't have to, be a toothy smile. Just kind of give them a grin. Let them know that you're there. Let them know that you care. Don't have a very stoic facade. just show that you're open to them, that you're receptive to whatever they want to talk to you about, to whatever they have a need of at that specific time.
This is David Tulis. We do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are on YouTube Live at Hot News Talk Radio. That's our channel. And also, this show and all of our other live shows stream with living color and Technicolor on Facebook at the Hot News Talk Radio Facebook page. And we do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time on your smart device. Use the TuneIn Radio app to make us a favorite. And then whenever I'm on or Russell is on with Binary or Jill Collins on with the arts or even Clutch with Keon, our sports show at just at dinner time, make sure that you have us live there on your smart device. Keep yourself plugged in to keep the power high on your battery. Philip Wold is 59. He works in day surgery in the X-ray technology field. And in a way, Philip, I think you're in the wrong field. I think somehow your calling has mismatched your personal gifts because you're kind of in the back. You know, you're not dealing with the public. You'd be, in a way, I think, a great salesman. And think about this. What you're saying, all the things you're talking about of compassion, really is how you sell something. If you have a service or a good, if you have compassion with people who are prospective people whom you can help, then you can find out indeed that you can help that person or not. You know, that's the feeling out. That's the openness that my listener needs to have. He needs to have the gift of openness and that there you're just opening yourself up to gaining these signals, opening yourself up to hearing things. Well, tell us some other little stories about encounters you've had maybe in the past week at the local hospital at which you labor through a contractor. That are ways in which you showed that you cared about someone who was just passing you by there in the waiting room.
If I see somebody who looks like they're in need of something, and you can tell they occasionally have that deer in the headlights look, what I'll do is I'll approach them and just say, may I help you? Or I'll notice if they're cold. Are you cold or is there something I can do for you? Can I get you something? I think opening yourself up, like David said, and actually exposing a bit of your own vulnerability is fine. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that actually will show compassion towards those people you're dealing with. If you, for example, there was this lady that she was actually walking out just outside of our facility, and I just happened to be in the waiting room and was going to a different area of the hospital, and I saw her out in the lobby, and she just looked forlorn. So I came up to her and I asked her, I said, can I help you? And she was trying to find a specific elevator, which she couldn't find, and rather than tell her, complicated directions, I said, here, I'm kind of going that way. Let me show you. So I would walk and talk with this person, and they were very appreciative. They said, thank you so much for doing that. And I said, hey, this is what we do. I said, this is part of being a servant, part of being in the healthcare field.
So the reason Philip Wold is on my show, this is David Tulis, is that he has this, I'd say this gift of caring about other people. And you, my listener, I would like to suggest should take that to heart, especially if you are maybe thinking of doing what I suggest, and that is to start your own little enterprise prior to the collapse. Right? We have the great default coming, and before the great federal default will be great moments of tremendous excitement and tremendous terror in the fall of equities, and in many, as I projected, in loss of confidence in states and promises to pay and the like, which is our near future within the next 6 weeks to 6 years, perhaps. But anyway, in this coming downturn, I suggest you have a business, and so you keep thinking to yourself, how do I do that? How do I sell? How do I make connections? How do I find people whom I can serve? Because remember, when you start an enterprise, it's not because you want the money. It's not because you're looking at your own gain or your own survival. You have to think in terms of, what can I do for somebody else? That's every successful enterprise has that idea at the beginning of it. And that is, how can I make someone else successful? How can I reduce someone else's anxiety, his costs, reduce his level of breakdowns, his level of malfunctions? How can I cut his costs? How perhaps can I make his supply chain more effective and make his business more prosperous for him? If you think about your customer, that is the person who is your object, then you have much more prospect for success. And I think Philip Wold has a natural, warmly human encounter with himself, which lets him meet with other people. So in your dealings with people, Philip, are you confident of yourself? How is it you view yourself in the context of the customers of the hospital whom you serve?
I really think, David, that there's a bit of confidence, because I think you've got to have that when you approach a stranger. And I think you can communicate that through the willingness to help them, the willingness to be available to help them. As I've always felt, we're selling our service one person at a time. And I think that is exactly how we build upon a successful business. I know that has made I believe, a big difference where I work. One patient at a time.
Yeah, and that's right, because the patient who might go to the competing hospitals can remember his encounter with you, and somehow, even though it was on the margin of his whole experience there,
right,
because he met you and had a personal connection with you as a representative of that business, right, he will say, I had a great experience. I'm not sure why at this hospital here in Chattanooga, and it was because I met this man just in passing, who just said, "Oh, let me get that coffee for you," or "Oh, the coffee machine." He noticed my little detail, and he noticed my little need, and he met that need at that point, and he did it in a warm and gregarious way. And that is an other-centricness, what I would say is a local economy virtue that you, the listener of this program, need to think about. And you need to meet people like Philip Wold. I mean, you need to look him up. I mean, he's a man you need to look up, and we'll have to ask him where he circulates so that you might have that occasion. But that is how local economy works. That's how every enterprise works. It's thinking first of the other. So that hospital has future patients because of a chance encounter with a man who wasn't even in his own department, but who was just going down the hall and had a brief conversation with someone who feels better afterwards, gets to the right elevator, and has some minor need taken care of there in the well-lit corridor, busy as it is sometimes as people come and go in that place. Well, where do you go to networking events, Philip, or what do you think about networking type gatherings?
I think that's good if you've got if you have a need for a job, if you have a need to augment your own personal business or maybe the business you work in. I think that's those things are very viable and valuable. I believe that like I've always felt, you're going to sell yourself. If you can sell yourself, then everything behind you falls into place. Your business will fall into place. Even your economic drive, your economic needs will fall into place if you can sell yourself. And it's easy. You just, like I said, just be slightly vulnerable, be ready to do it.
You, the listener, you're not having an encounter with someone because you want the money. That can't ever be the reason. That can't be, because if you want the money, the encounter is about you and your needs and your desires and your goals and your plans. It can't be about you. It has to be about the other person. And that's what Philip Wold is telling us. Philip, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Philip Wold is 54, married, and is a longtime party working behind the scenes in the X-ray technology field, but who makes his appearance occasionally in the waiting room of a local hospital. And there he looks out for people. He's a warm and cheerful presence. And I think you might agree with me just hearing him, or maybe you can watch him on our channel at YouTube. This is the kind of person you want to work for you, because he's always thinking about you. He's thinking about your customer. And here he's thinking about a giant enterprise, a hospital. And with no personal gain that can accrue to him from his encounters, he thinks about the customer. He thinks about the patient. And that kind of other outlook is valuable in the marketplace. It's essential for our prosperity here in Chattanooga and Howard County. We face disaster ahead from the good people, and we need more people to think as he does. Now, I think you, my listener, need to think in terms of warm and compassionate treatment, patience, patience for your customer, perhaps. This is David Tulis.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
Here's what advertisers are saying about AM 1240. HotNewsTalkRadio.com.
Radio station, they really care. They're always calling me probably once a week, checking on me, seeing how things going, see if they want to change any of the ads or do anything different, seeing what my needs are. I've gotten business off the ads that you do for me, and seems to be working well at this point.
Prices were very fair. Areas in this town that we aren't able to get other ways, your radio station is able to help us out, and I really appreciate that.
We've been very pleased with the services we've got. It seems like everybody over there cares about what they're going to do, how it's going to work for us on this end, and we've been very impressed with the creativity of the ads that we've heard, and they always seem to be right on point, even without us having to come up with what's going to be said.
Been doing business with News Talk Radio for quite some time. It's the best place and the best value you can get for your advertisement. The commercials are great. They're very professional. I was actually blown away.
The commercial that they put together was awesome. It was way far above all the other radio stations we've dealt with. The best we've had yet, guarantee you, by far.
AM 1240, HotNewsTalkRadio.com gets results. Let us get results for your business. For no obligation free consultation, call General Sales Manager Steve Johnson. Call 423-240-5459. That's 240-5459. Or you can always email Steve at NoogaRadioSteve@gmail.com. That's NoogaRadioSteve@gmail.com. AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We get results.
We're at the Cantina at Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Yes, sir. 2 orders of nachos with beef and beans, 2 beers. Chattanooga loves its Amigos restaurants, but the Amigos in Hickson has something extra. NASCAR, every race. How about a house wine? Really good. Big name beers, just tell Maria what you want. And here at Amigos, margaritas are popular, and it's only $3 all day. If you come here on a race day, Sunday, a Natty Light is only $2.25. Here at Amigos, just during NASCAR, Natty Light, $2.25. Amigos Mexican Restaurant in Hickson. The happy hour is 3 to 9 today and every day. I'd say the atmosphere is festive. Look at that huge TV. It's like being amid the fans, under a bright sun, but no gasoline fumes, no heat. Stay cool. Quench your thirst. Amigos between Staples and Hobby Lobby. Take the next table to mine. Enjoy the NASCAR race with friend or family here at the Cantina at Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Okay, it started.
Drivers, start your engines.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
When you crack your screen, mess up your charge port, you get soaked in a rainstorm, what do? Save money, save big, fix it, get surgery. There's a cell phone hospital near you. It's the Cell Surgeon. Adam Disbrow, the man in white, he replaces your screen, fixes your buttons, gives you back Twitter, Facebook, your online universe. Walk-in patients go to Cell Surgeon in Ottawa. Cell Surgeon is new in Ottawa, next to Zaxby's. Other docs in the cell repair business are just lab coats. The doc at Cell Surgeon is the best. He wants you to be happy, fix your phone, save money, and save time. Every minute is valuable, and Cell Surgeon doesn't want to waste a second. Your wireless MD, the Cell Surgeon, quick and precise with your device. Takes an hour or less. Northgate Mall, Cell Surgeon next to Old Chicago Pizza, 900-8263, thecellsurgeon.com. Like him on Facebook.
You used to call me on my... You used to.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. New developments in the case of a woman who was gunned down in cold blood on 7th Avenue. 2 people of interest have now been named by the Chattanooga Police Department. Chasdis D. Watley, who's 20, and Eureka Leslie, who's 28, now both being sought after as people of interest. LaRonda Spence, after being riddled by bullets, made her way to the hospital where she died. After mysteriously posting $350,000 bond, police say 22-year-old Christopher Paget used a pair of scissors to cut off his GPS ankle bracelet and escape. His defense attorney, Robin Flores, says it's damning to defend an empty chair. He doesn't know what the jury's going to think. His trial is Friday morning. The case made headlines all over the country. A 22-month-old child left inside of a car in Cobb County died after being abandoned for hours. The trial for the father defendant, who's accused of doing this intentionally, has been postponed, though, because the trial is set for a county that's on the Georgia coast. Hurricane Matthew is heading straight forward, and it's been evacuated. If it's going on the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Except mostly sunny, dry, and warm weather out there through your afternoon. Highs 84 to 87 tonight. A few passing clouds, milder lows into the lower 60s. Continue dry for the weekend, but very breezy. Highs tomorrow closer to 80 into the upper 70s on Sunday. This forecast is brought to you by JCPenney. At JCPenney, get $10 off now through this weekend when you spend $25 or more with coupon. That's getting your pennies worth at JCPenney. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Assert your liberty. Assert your desire for privacy, as the English say. To have a say in the marketplace, to make yourself felt. And today, Cash Friday, you need to go to your lender, which is to say the company that has borrowed money from you because you're a depositor. You are the lender. It is the borrower. And you need to draw out a claim of 100. Okay, 100 what? Well, a piece of paper, green, that has the number 100 in the top left, right, and bottom left, right corners, also called a $100 bill. You can do it by getting 20s if you want, the $20 Federal Reserve note, and you do that because you want to avoid feeding the tapeworm economy. The tapeworm economy is that of the world of credit, of national banks, of giant systems that skim off of real productivity and skim off of all transactions anywhere from 2 to 5%. And if you pay cash, your local provider, your local restaurateur, the man who makes the best hamburger in the world, perhaps, will receive payment immediately, though, of course, it is just in paper. And so draw out five $20 bills or a $100 bill. And as you do so, you are making a statement. Now, the banking system has so little liquidity in it that it could be, if you and I can do it and the bank system is not going to notice, but if one other person joins, they may have the banks may have to send for an armored car up from Atlanta with memos firing back and forth by email, secure email, of course, encrypted, and then an armored car with an additional $100 bill will come up and liquefy the system. So the system is illiquid. Some banks have no reserves at all and can balloon out their loan portfolio for new nursing homes, new strip malls, and the like, as what they're doing, new car loans. and so Cash Friday, do that today. Every first Friday of the month, you and I are going to assert our independence, assert our liberty to have cash, which is the instrument of freedom, even though, as we are going to now discuss with Confederate Mike, a cantankerous American, if there ever was one, how it is that this green piece of paper is, in fact, a ripoff. So you want to take part in privacy, have this green rectangle in your billfold, or 5 of them. But on the other hand, Mike, there's some writing on this bill. The writing is questionable. But can you fill us in just a little bit? What's wrong with the writing on this bill? Does not this writing signify honesty and integrity, or does it not?
It's privacy. I hate privacy.
It's Friday.
It's privacy. It's not. If we're not English,
okay, go
ahead.
It's
just privacy stuff.
Answer my question.
Well, I am. I'm going to answer it in a roundabout way. Is the fact that part of the reasons we're having issues is because we're a leftover of the British Empire, and using some of their language like lifts and privacy.
I do that just in fun.
I know you do. I'm joking with you, but it's interesting that you mentioned. Let me tell you my background. Is I'm probably one of the most knowledgeable people on this issue, which we call the money issue, which other people that claim to have knowledge of it really don't, because I studied 13, 14 years of intense research looking this up, and the archives, so on and so forth. Had some great mentors, I would, but Tupper Saucy is one.
A great Tennessean, now deceased.
We can go back to Adam Smith, where it really started. You really going to adjust my? He's adjusting my mic. Leave my mic alone.
It bothers me, Mike.
Leave my mic alone. It's like when I'm flying my airplane, somebody touched my stuff. Stop touching my stuff. Okay. I'm kidding with David. Southerners really don't get sarcasm. First of all, before we go forward, I want our prayers to go out to all the people in Florida. I lived there for many years, and let me tell you, what they're going through right now is you can't even imagine. I chased one of the hurricanes back in 2006 in Arcadia. I was 10 minutes behind it, and it looked like the town was hit by a nuclear explosion. Can you imagine being displaced from your home immediately? You've got to leave now. And this is no joke. They're getting hit with 100-mile-an-hour winds right now, and they're not seeing the worst of it. This is, I believe, the largest category hurricane that's hit Florida in over 100 years. So there's going to be so much devastation. And thank you to the Chattanoogans, a group of 12 that I know of right now that are prepared to go and assist after this happens. There's several hundred, I think actually 3,500 National Guard troops deployed. So the state of Florida really has prepared for this. All schools are closed today, so all the resources are put on the eastern part of the state of Florida. This hurricane is skirting up the coast and will smack Daytona Beach with a force it's unimaginable. And we're talking about waves of 9, 10, 11 feet. This is not good news for Floridians. So keep listening to our radio station, other radio stations, if you listen to them, the news, and they're going to ask you to give. They're going to need water. They're going to need food. They're going to need clothing. They're going to need money. These people right now are in a very desperate situation. And because of the preparedness, no lives have been lost yet. So I want everyone to pray right now for the residents of Florida, the entire state, especially on the East Coast and what they're going through.
Let's pray for the people of Florida, not the state of Florida.
The money issue, a lot of people turn off when you talk about the money issue. What is money? How is it? But you used the term, you said dollar bill. Language is very important. This is always a choice between liberty and slavery. Do we want to be a free people? Do we want to be an enslaved people? And if you have any knowledge of the Constitution, and you probably do, that's why you're listening to us. The reason why the founders formed the Constitution was for economic purposes, primarily. Under the Articles of Confederation, the colonies almost collapsed because of economic reasons. They would just print their own currency. And we decided under the Constitution that would no longer be allowed, where you can just print currency and pass it on as money. So when David called this a bill, I'm going to point this up, a bill. What is a bill? What is a bill?
Well, a bill
is an announcement.
A bill is a report of a claim of by one party upon another party.
Well, it's that, but it's an announcement.
And it represents something. The bill refers to, it points an arrow to something else.
Right.
An object, perhaps, or a service.
Right. It's an announcement. Bill of ladings, it's an announcement of something. Well, this dollar bill was once a promise to pay something. And let's go back to the importance of this. If David Tulis, you were holding 1,000 coin silver dollars of mine, and you gave me 1,000 receipts.
They're also called Morgan dollars informally.
Let's call them 1,000 receipts for the dollar. Silver dollar.
That's not clear, Mike. Say it again.
If you had 1,000 silver dollars in your safe, and you issued me 1,000 pieces of paper, and on each piece,
on it,
and each piece of paper it said, "Pay to the bearer on demand," because I can pass it along, $1 in silver from the Bank of David.
Okay. Pay to the bearer on demand.
Who's ever holding it.
That means that the piece of paper does what?
It says it could be redeemed on demand. You bring it over to
What does redeemed mean?
It means to buy back.
Okay. What does that mean?
That to buy back.
That means you can submit the piece of paper to the holder of the coin, and the holder of the coin will trade with you. He will accept the piece of paper.
He's not trading with you.
No.
What he's doing is he's taking the receipt for the piece of silver that you have, and you're giving it back to him.
Okay, I'll take the piece of paper and I'll give you the coin.
Right.
Which is really worth something, right?
Right. By me holding this paper, there's an obligation somewhere, and it's upon you.
And it's upon me
to pay.
The holder of the coin.
Right. This is so important that for 5 years it was illegal to show currency, U.S. currency, on television, because they took what's called the redemption factor off. As of June 24th, 1968, you could no longer get your silver at a Federal Reserve Bank or a member bank for the paper. And what that means is what gave the paper value was there was silver coinage in the bank. And you could always take your piece of paper, go to a Federal Reserve Bank or a member bank and say, I want one piece of silver for this piece of paper. They then would have to redeem it. Well, as of June 24th, 1968, you can no longer do that. They kept your silver. And how in the world? There you go.
This is the paper sound. Here's the sound of paper. Rubbing $10.
And how in the world that wasn't considered robbery or thievery is beyond me. They kept your silver. You played with the paper. The problem with that is there's several problems. The concept of limited government is dead. If you cannot control government's power to spend, you have no limited government. So, number one, there was a fraud committed because your money was
against the listener.
Against
and
you.
And his heirs.
Against you, against your father, against your mother, against your grandfather. Because the silver they had in the bank, they could no longer obtain. Now, one will argue, who wants to carry around a bunch of heavy gold and heavy silver? Well, you don't have to carry it around. Put it with the Bank of David. Put it with 100 or 1,000 other banks that are willing to hold it. But you can't do that today. Do you know why? Because in 1913, they created a monopoly. And I heard on your show yesterday, the Constitution Party candidate talking about how, well, the progressives, they're on my side too. They're against the Federal Reserve. Yes, but they want the government to be the issuer of credit, as in one of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. They don't want a private federal bank to do it. They want the government to do it. So progressives are principally the same. The idea of a central bank issuing credit is Marxism. It's communism. It's one of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. So what
the state issuing the credit or the currency is no better.
Well, that's the state. When they say the state,
free markets.
When they say the state issuing credit under the Communist Manifesto, they mean the federal central government. But they use the term loosely, the state. Now, how is this affecting us? If you had $1,000, and I'll give you an example. My brother purchased this home for $10,000 in 1968. That home was recently appraised for around $300,000. Did his home increase in value? Well, no. His home didn't increase in value. The currency diminished in value because they printed more of it. The more you have of anything, the less it's worth. So what happened is the federal government engaged in what's called a hidden tax. There was a tax put in place that valued the price of the product and raised the amount of Federal Reserve non-notes that you have to pay for this home. But what does this do? Well, if you go to sell it, prime example, you paid $10,000 for it. You're selling it for $300,000. The feds are going to claim you have a $290,000 profit. You don't, because you have to go to the next homeowner with the exact same type of house and spend $300,000 to obtain the same house. So what is done? Not only has your purchasing power been diminished, but you're going to be taxed on something which they call price inflation or profit and gain that really truly doesn't exist because the government has the power to print money.
Yeah, because you, the listener, have the privilege of using our currency, which debases your buying power. You also have the duty now to pay the tax on the so-called increase, the perceived or alleged increase of value.
Now, if you don't care about words, especially if you're a Christian, you care about words. Abortion, aborticide, money, dollar. This is important because don't believe because the government is doing it, they have a right to do it. And
you mean an authority to do it?
They have the authority to do it. You often talk about non-crimes like resisting arrest or disorderly conduct. Disorderly conduct will never be ruled unconstitutional because it will never make it to an appellate court. So they're able to use it over and over and over again. And the people that say it's unconstitutional, they'll dismiss the case so they can constantly use it. It's no different with the money issue. I tried to get it before the Supreme Court in the 80s. They won't listen to the issue. Because of that, we have in this country fraudulent currency that was agreed to internationally almost 100 years ago that this would take place. You are now going to be the smartest person in Chattanooga. I promise you. You're going to be this. You know why? Do you know why they're going to be? He's going to be there. She's going to be the smartest person in Chattanooga. Do you know why? You know why you are? You know why you are? Because I'm going to give you some definitions that you can make some money on a bet tonight at your local bar. or maybe if you have the family
My
gathering.
listener goes home to his family, Mike.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure who
you
you're
think
talking
so.
to.
Really? Okay.
I
You want
do think that.
you want to bet a Federal Reserve note on that? This says 20. Well, can you answer me, David? 20 what?
Well, I cannot answer that, Mike. Confederate Mike, I just can't.
20 what? I mean, if I went back to you, who's holding my 20 pieces of silver in your safe, now I know 20 what? 20 coined silver dollars. But 20 what? This promised redemption in $20 of silver. A dollar is a unit of measurement. It's not a thing, just so we're accurate. Well, 20 what? It says note. Well, a note, by definition, is a promise to pay money. Well, what's money? Money is any medium adapted or adopted by a foreign or domestic government. In our country, in the 1792 Coinage Act, called money, gold, and silver coinage. Gold and silver at 371 and a quarter grains of fine silver.
How many grains again?
371 and a quarter fine grains of silver.
271.
371 and a quarter grains of fine silver is the money of account of the U.S., and it's then stamped and with mill markings around the ridges, and that is the money of account. It is a silver coin of a particular weight, a dollar quantity of silver. It's a weight. So you have a dollar quantity of silver. I've got 20 of them. Now I know what this 20 means. I can redeem or buy back my $20 of silver.
I do have a question.
And exchange this.
All right. How can the listener benefit from this knowledge? Is there anything practically he can do in light of this grievous offense against him and his family?
What you can do is as often as you can, don't use the banking system. Don't use the Federal Reserve currency, which is fraudulent.
That's impossible.
I said as often as you can. If you can barter, if you can trade. There have been times within our lifetime that individuals have tried to start their own currency and have been shut down.
And there also have been people who have understood banking to be a warehouse operation, and they have faced criminal prosecution.
Can I ask
in Memphis,
you a question? Ago. You were a taxpayer. You were paying. Why does one? And I asked the IRS this, and they couldn't quite answer me. Why does one have to pay a tax when the government in one day can create all the purchasing power to do what they want to do? So why? I mean, I want you to think about it. I want you to ask your congressman this. Congressman, why are they taking taxes out of my paycheck when in one day the Federal Reserve can create the purchasing power either on the books or through currency?
Well, this question was answered. There is an answer. Do you know the answer to that?
I know the answer, but I'm asking the question. What's the answer?
Well, part of the answer is from Beardsley Rummel, who wrote in a foreign policy magazine, I think it's called Foreign Policy, in 1946 or 1947. He was the man who theorized the withholding tax brought about in 1943 by the Congress. And he says that taxation is no longer necessary since we have a central bank. It is a social management tool. To do what? You suppose,
social
Mike?
Engineering, redistribution of the wealth, controlling resources, controlling assets, determining who gets what,
and skimming off the excess.
Well, sopping up the water in the soup.
Sopping up. That's right. Why is that important for the system to maintain
to prevent price inflation? But I don't want you to think about all that when you talk to your congressman. All I want you to ask him is if you can create all the money. And by the way, I'm not a genius. I got this from Justice Field. This was one of Justice Field's questions in his dissenting opinion in a case called Juilliard versus Greenman. He said, if the government can compel you a promise to pay, at that time it was a promise to pay. I mean, it was a case that said this is redeemable for silver. If the government can compel you to pay promises to pay, then why not in one day could the government not create all the notes to pay off the bonds and the debts and to run the entire system?
Wars.
No. What he said was public pretended improvements. Public pretended improvements. So in other words, they were even creating schemes back then. Don't think there's pork now. There was pork in the 1800s and the 1700s. So why do you care? Why is it important for me, the listener?
Let's get to the listener here.
To even care about this? Because you can never save now. The system is set up to keep you in perpetual indebtedness. You can never, ever save for your future. Because if you put so-called money in the bank, you will lose money. Every single minute it's in the bank.
Buying power is what you mean to say, Mike.
You will lose money. Your money will be robbed.
Buying power in the market. The buying power that you want are trying to preserve in this store of value, which is what currency or money is lost progressively day by day by the creation of new debt in terms of and in that currency unit.
Article 1, Section 10, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. I'm going to tell you how deep this fraud goes. Even if the state says we will not accept anything for ourselves, but gold, silver coin, and paper promising to pay so, you will lose that in a court of law. That's how deep this fraud has become. And the Bible says, and Christ said, thou shalt not be diverse weights and measures in thy bag. That if you're going to get paid, you need to get paid.
It's in the Psalms, the Proverbs, and Leviticus, and Deuteronomy.
So every time, and I hate to do this to you, but now you know it. Every time you purchase a good or a service using your debit card, credit card, or currency, you're committing a sin.
Well,
yes, Christian,
I
you're
just said from this
committing
perspective.
a sin because you're passing on a fraud. What you're doing is you're saying, I hope you too can pass on this fraudulent paper, knowing that it's been around for 6,000 years. And let me tell you something. You know what paper currency has in common with other currencies that started 6,000 years ago, our modern day paper currency? They've all failed. And in Keynesian economics, you know what he said? Just let me finish here. You know what he said? You can't start a monetary system on paper, but you sure will end one on one.
And because of this certainty, that's why we here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and I, your host, David Tulis, interviewing Confederate Mike. This is why we suggest that you don't have your treasures in paper. Don't have your treasures in there. Don't count on your future in terms of the dollar. Find alternative investments, alternative stores of value, and mediums of exchange. It could be education. It could be your children. It could be a new business. It could be time with your family. These are all soft things in the economy that have real value, in lasting and enduring value. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, David.
Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? No!
German? Forget it, he's rolling.
And it ain't over now. Because when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Who's with me? Let's go! Come on!
Hot News Talk 1240 AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, with your chance to win $124 in cash and $124 in food every week with the Hot News Talk Radio 1, 2, 3 NASCAR contest. Hot News Talk 1240. All you have to do is guess who's going to be first, second, and third place in the upcoming NASCAR